And we're live. Welcome to Music Matters 2020. My name is Jason Tramm, and I'm your host, and we're delighted that you can join us for our unique podcast community, where we explore the issues and challenges of 2020 as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues. And I'm so delighted that you can join us. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and like us, our videos, and share them on social media. We're so happy that you can join us tonight as we explore these challenges and issues. This is our 70th episode tonight. We're really excited. We started at the beginning of June, and we're up to 70 episodes with 70 wonderful colleagues, and tonight is no exception. We have a fantastic internationally active opera singer soprano who's graced the major stages of Europe and the United States and all over, and we're delighted that Joanna Parisi could be with us tonight. Welcome, Joanna.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for having me today, Maestro. It's great to sing with you, and it's even better to speak with you about all these important issues.
Well, we're so delighted that you could be here, and we met doing a concert last year. My friend Natasha put together a beautiful concert, and we worked together for the first time, and I was so impressed with your professionalism and your voice and your stage presence, and it was so great to work with you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful experience. Always singing in New York, being in New York with you and Natasha, wonderful friends. It was wonderful, but sadly, that was one of the last indoor performances that most of us have been able to do.
So that was my last performance. So yes, I feel that very distinctly. And I see Natasha's online. Hello, Natasha. Greetings and a shout out to you.
Hello.
Natasha is in the sunny Florida, so we give her greetings down the south.
She's lucky in a way, yeah.
She's posting pictures of Florida, and it's winter here. It hasn't snowed yet in New York. I'm in suburban New York, but it's getting ready to. Now, you're not in New York. You are across the pond in Bologna, if I'm correct.
I'm in Bologna, and it actually snowed last night, so it's already snowy December. And
amazing.
It's great to be in Italy, but I'm missing New York and the New York area, New Jersey, so it's wonderful to be in connection once again with you.
Now, why don't we go back in time and talk about your development as an artist? Now, you are an American-born artist and now living in I think you have dual residency. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm actually an Italian-American citizen of both countries. From my Italian-American heritage, so I have both passports. So, I've always loved being an ambassador for Italian culture and classical music and language in United States and beyond, in South America, throughout Europe. It's always been an honor and a pleasure to try to do this, and it's always expanding as the world changes. My perspectives expand as well.
Well, you're a wonderful ambassador at that, and you've gotten to perform all over Europe and travel quite a bit. When did you start singing? When did you know you wanted to be a singer? We seem to be having a technical challenge there. I may have lost Joanna, so we're going to call her back up. And, of course, we're at the whims of technology, but we're going to get her back on the line and jump in. We're going to hold standby. We'll be right back. And we're back. These days, with the challenge with the internet, we're at the whims of the internet, and sometimes the gods of the internet are kind, and sometimes they can be a challenge. But we've got Joanna back from Bologna, and so tell us did you always know you wanted to be a singer?
No, I started singing for a last minute decision. I went to the music conservatory, and I always loved science and biology and mathematics, but I wanted to try on recommendation of teachers, and it was one of the best decisions I could have made at the time. It brought me a lot of fulfillment to sing. But I studied in Purchase College in Westchester County in New York, which was fantastic because I got exposure to the Metropolitan Opera and all the artists that came internationally and centered in New York. And I met them personally, which was wonderful to meet the artists with my own eyes and see them perform. And it immediately brought an important perspective. And New York has been so important for my I was born in New York, and I started singing Tosca in Central Park was my first opera that I sang with Vincent LaSalva in the New York Grand Opera. So he was a
So
person.
many great singers went through that program, and
Yeah,
he gave so many singers a chance, Vincent LaSilva.
he's the best. And it was so wonderful formative experience because he was someone who had a tremendous goal in mind, which was to perform all of Verdi's operas. And this also made a great impression on me, always wanting to be a Verdi and Verismo singer. So this was really fantastic exposure. I sang Nabucco and Aida, two Verdian operas when I was 24 and 25. It was very helpful, and just to be totally immersed and have the healthy pressure to go on was one of the best gifts I ever could have had as an artist.
You must have been. It must have been so interesting to approaching those massive roles so young. Abigail with all its incredible jumps and dramatic leaps and
Yeah.
coloratura.
Well, it was actually I am very courageous as a singer, but having someone who understood your voice at a young age really helps because with my kind of a voice, pinto, dramatic soprano, the beginner things aren't so easy. So he did me a very big favor by helping me getting started with the repertoire. And this type of repertoire is something that you grow into over a lifetime. So if you don't start it young, you may never grow into it.
That's a good
Something
point. That's a
very
good point.
strange.
Now, what? How did you? So you finished up SUNY Purchase in New York, and what was your next step in your development?
Oh, well, I continued to sing and I met Renata Scotto, who when I was 19, who gave me also a lot of motivation because she heard my voice and she said, "You really have something special." And so she took me in her program also in Westchester, New York, years ago, around 2005 maybe. And she had me study with all of professional singers of about 30 years old, and she worked with me personally. But after that, even though I was singing professionally, I never believed that I could really sing full time because it's really a dream and very difficult. So I studied and I worked in journalism and public relations in New York until I met Vincent LaSalva, and he introduced me with Tosca, which was my professional debut. And after that moment, I took singing very seriously. I realized it was something I could do a lot with. And from there, I've been singing the big roles all over in Europe and South America primarily.
And what are some of the roles that you've done the most of?
Oh, Tosca, Il Trovatore, Don Carlo, probably the most. I sing Verdi Requiem very frequently. Uh, a lot of all Verdi practically. You know, what haven't I done? There's only a few I haven't done yet. Ballo in Maschera is something I haven't sang on stage,
I've
which I
never
love to
conducted a
sing.
bolo, and I've had bolo on my list for years, and that's one of those pieces that doesn't get done as often as it should.
No, no, it's very sad, but yeah, I think also Nabucco. I sing many times, and I've sung both roles in Carmen, and Cavalleria Rusticana is now one of my major roles, and Trovatore sempre, always, always.
And those, you can never go wrong with those core roles. They keep
Yeah,
coming back. And
they
how do the
do.
roles change as you do them more often? How do they change as you perform them and you bring them to life?
Oh, well, the best, you would absorb the energy of the character more and more. It might sound simple, but it's something that we all across all musical genres feel. The more you embody a character, you absorb little details that each character feels, and you can transmit that. And you have microseconds where you change focus or you think of a small detail, but that makes the difference. And you can change the molecules in the room when you really feel and understand the character. And I feel that way about Tosca, who is Tosca's very well defined, and there's every detail is written into the score as Puccini normally does. But another character I've sung so many times is Leonora in Il Trovatore, which is very is sketched out in a totally different way, and that you have to bring your own personality to, because they're vague historical women. But the more you absorb the poetry, the more detailed of an interpretation you can give.
Yeah, it's very interesting how when you bring those historical characters to life, those challenges are must be really interesting to add to your interpretation. And we're back. Yeah, the challenges of online can be so really something sometimes. We have someone from our audience, Jamie Arias, says it's a privilege to hear you talk, Joanna. That you are a wonderful artist. So, shout out
Oh,
from.
thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you.
So now we're talking about interpretations and how that changes over time. And a role like Tosca, which is a signature role for you, and it's such a challenge. I mean, conducting Tosca really drains me. It's such a brutal opera. How is it as a singer? How do you feel after you perform a role like that when you go through that everything that character has to go through?
I find it very, I find it totally natural. And Puccini, as I was saying before, uh, if you look in the score, it gives you every detail, and you can be carried away with the score, with the music, but not only the poetry and every stage direction that's written within the score. And so you can become the roles very easily, and you each time that you perform the role, whether it's perfectly sketched out every detail as Puccini wrote, or another kind of opera like Verdi, where it's more fluid with more room for interpretation. I mean, the more you sing the roles, the more details you can add, and the more energy and molecules you can change in the room, and you can reach people
I love that.
always better
I love
with
that
these
concept of
moments.
molecules in the room. How you bring that to life with your sound and with your interpretation. So when you play a role like Don Carlo, the role of Don Carlo, and you're presented, have you read all the source material? How do you do your research for those characters?
Well, it's interesting because I really appreciate and love the history behind operas, but equally as important in an opera like Don Carlo is the performance history and the vocal decisions and the production decisions that have been made. So I really try to take all of that into account. And Don Carlo is actually maybe it's my favorite opera because it humanizes these royal characters. It's and it speaks about the emotions that are probably the most profound that Verdi ever wrote about. It's very different than Tosca, which is very visceral and is kind of the definition of verismo. And
The
Don
first
Carlo is
Verismo,
equally as
first
passionate,
Verismo
but
opera.
totally on another plane.
Absolutely. We had a friend of both of ours on the show here. We had Maria Cristina Nicula, who talked about the Don Carlo Enigma, a book she wrote, and we explored the historical figure of Don Carlo and then the Verdi's Requiem, which is pretty fascinating stuff.
Yes, and she's a scholar. She's a wonderful, highly intelligent person and a great performer as well. And I really want to read her work, and I want her to also give a presentation in my upcoming productions of Verdi that I'm intending to do in New York, of the rarer Verdi operas, because she's actually one of the most interesting experts that I found lately, and her excitement about opera is always growing more and more.
We've had
So
many conversations about these pieces, and she's got such an interesting take on them. That her show is very interesting for me. Well, it's interesting how each generation puts their own stamp on these historical figures. Like when you look at Verdi's interpretation of the libretto of these people, it's very different than the actual reality. They put their kind of I guess their historical spin to fit their narrative. It's really interesting how that changes through the generations.
well, yeah, they take the librettists. They're emitting, Italian emotion of the time through their poetry, and Verdi through his music. But it's a beautiful combination with the probably the best result we could ever hope to have in Verdi.
Verdi's,
So
and that's interesting. We talked about how Puccini puts everything in the score. As a conductor,
yeah,
you spend so much time preparing those operas, but once you have them, they're basically in your bones. It's like in your interpretation. I love conducting Puccini, but yeah, Verdi is a little freer in that regard. You have more. Not everything is written for you, so you have to do a little more of your own personal interpretation. I find that
oh
fascinating.
no, of course, and then of course it changes so much as we start with I don't know, I Due Foscari, which is an opera I really actually like, until we get to Othello, and we're really starting to get more of Verdi's control. His hands are really on our production and our artistic choices by when we reach Othello.
Othello is also has a certain amount of has some Wagner in it. There are elements he incorporated from other places. I think Verdi was constantly striving to find that truth in his music.
Absolutely, yeah. I love Wagner too. Is something I'm really interested. I'm making a debut album of dramatic soprano arias, so I'm including a lot of Verdi and Wagner in this project. So
Wow,
that's something I've been thinking about a lot as
across
well.
that divide, the Verdi Wagner divide. Interesting.
Mhm. Well, it's not much of a divide, honestly, to me anyway.
That's wonderful. So what are some of the Wagner roles you're experimenting with and you're working on?
Oh, Isolde, Elizabeth, Tannhäuser, Elsa in Lohengrin, um, Sieglinde, and we'll see how after the pandemic things are going to go.
That's exciting. It's always exciting to try new things, and that's one of the things during this pandemic that people have. All the artists we've spoken to have been experimenting, doing new things. What have you been doing during this pandemic period?
Oh, well, right before the pandemic, I was in the process of planning a performance initiative of rare Verdi operas in New York. Then the pandemic arrived in March, and so I really made me stop and think. As much as I feel fulfilled singing opera around the world, it really highlighted all the strange issues that we've kind of been ignoring about opera, and it brought them to the forefront. Um, all the technological advances in other fields, we have not made the same ones. And in classical music, sometimes we switch the two things. We try to modernize, but we lose
So we lost that last statement.
me as a singer to coordinate live.
We lost that last
Do you hear
statement.
me?
Yeah, we had a little bit of lag there. Can you just start that again? We were just talking about the impact of
Uh,
technology on opera, which is so important.
Absolutely. I was just saying that the pandemic made me realize that there's such a technological divide that is stopping us now, this moment, and in the future from creating art when we need it. For example, you as a conductor and I as a singer, if we would like to make music right now, we it's difficult for us to have a conversation. It's with the networking issues and the software issues. So just to have a conversation is this difficult to the minute nuances that are essential to our work we can never get across, and it seems simple maybe to outsiders, but is a big problem, and it inspired me to study computer science. And I've kind of just begun my studies of it, but I'm going to get a master's degree in computer science from the University of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So I'm really looking forward to that
Now
because I
that's
want to be a part of the
incredible.
solution.
That's really
Yeah,
incredible. That I know you said you were interested in science growing up, and that you had considered that as a career before going and committing to music. That's amazing. It's such a great time to be in technology. I think that's going to be more important than ever as we come out of this period.
absolutely. It's opposites at the same time. The art of what we're doing is more important than ever, and the technological representation of that art and its authenticity is really important. So we can't just get caught up in modernity and trying to be to adapt the art itself. We need the technology to serve our art. And with all the language barriers, it's not a barrier, it's an opportunity to communicate in other ways. And there's ways that we can, not only can we eventually with software be in sync musically. You can conduct, I can respond, or a pianist can play, and I can respond as a singer. But we can get, we need to work on live translation methods with language, natural language processing, and machine learning. There's so much that needs to be done. But we're behind now. But maybe this is the shock that we needed to save classical music and to
Now, have you done a lot of the virtual
awesome.
concerts and the pre-recorded concerts during this period?
Excuse me?
Have you
What
done
did you
a,
say?
have you done virtual and pre-recorded concerts during this period?
No, I have not. I've actually am working on something a little bit different for professional recordings of very rare Verissimo operas. One is Maremma by Pasquale Di Canio, which is very beautiful one-act opera, a rarity. And I'm working also on a CD of dramatic soprano arias. So I'm I'm not really someone that I like to write and I like to perform, but I'm not someone that I I like the distance that opera provides, and I like a very polished and finished product. So I think my contribution during this time is to show my best work in Verissimo operas that haven't been well represented.
Well, it's exciting that you're
And
digging into new repertoire and preparing yourself, and because this will be over and you'll be ready to perform those roles on the other side. That's great. And
yeah,
I find that dramatic voices, it's so hard to record dramatic voices well. It's a real challenge.
yeah. Well, where is a good place to record dramatic voices is at Purchase. They have a beautiful recital hall. I think for the dramatic voices, you need a live acoustic if whenever possible. In a studio location, it's very difficult, and you have to really think a lot about the microphone positioning, I think.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a
and
challenge.
there's nothing like being in a venue and hearing a dramatic voice. I was doing a concert with and I had Vladimir Galuzin singing, and just to have that voice next to me, it was the hair. That was my debut concert with the New Jersey State Opera. The hair in my arms raised up. It was so viscerally exciting, and a voice like yours, which has got so much sound, the microphone doesn't capture some of that.
No, no, well, you're absolutely right with what you're saying. There's no way the microphone can capture all the overtones of the voice that the dramatic voice. And that's something I've kind of been cultivating for a long time is this vocal emission of singers like Tebaldi and Ponsal, Leo Gencher and Anita Cerquetti, and more recently Aprile Nilo. These voices are so I don't put myself in their category, but these voices have such a richness and tradition that sometimes is lacking today. That opera goes more for precision than beauty and warmth and emotion of sound. But that's something artistically that's very, very, very important to me, and that's critical for the beauty of opera in the Verdian operas like Forza del Destino and Don Carlo, you need a very round, complete, warm sound. And yeah, that's hard to capture on in a studio recording above all. But luckily, actually, live recordings with orchestra and the real ambience of the theaters, we can get pretty close. A very nice result, I think.
It's true. We can certainly, at least it's something, and it gives us that. Thankfully, a lot of those recordings are saved for us, and we can hear a lot of them on YouTube these days.
Oh yes, we can, but
I
it's always
teach
more and more.
I teach undergraduates. I tell my undergraduates, I'm like, I'm old. I remember having to go to the library as an undergraduate and have to take out records to hear my favorite singers. You could just go on YouTube and type in their name and hear any
You
scene
can
pretty
go
much.
on YouTube, but the thing is now there's so much information and so many options that I imagine for a singer starting out that they wouldn't know where to begin and who to listen to, what to listen to, someone in the past, who from the past, who from the future, who it's really difficult to know. I always tell people that if you want an education of opera online, you have to read parterre.com or James Jordan. And I think like that's been my opera education from the beginning. I always
Mm.
used it as kind of a Bible because I find him to be one of him and the people he collaborates with are some of the most intelligent minds in classical music. And you can really it's an encyclopedia of knowledge. So if you can get a source like that or something else, and then go to YouTube with that background, you can be unstoppable, I think.
It's true, and to know which period of the singers to listen to for a young person, because you can hear a singer at the end of their career and it's very different than the middle or the beginning. Having that guide is so important. The right guide. It's a good point.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is you have to go on instinct too, and you have to trust yourself and your ears, and one really good way to improve. I'm highly self-taught, by the way, and a lot of people think, oh, well, you have a true Italian technique. Who did you study with? Well, of course, I studied with many people, but my whole concept of the voice has been training by ear, and the way you can do that is by being able to identify voices of the past. Because if someone puts on any soprano from the past, 90% chance I know who it is, but very few of my colleagues can do this, and very few administrators can do this. But training your ear for an operatic sound, if you want to be a singer, is probably one of the keys to success.
Certainly, and being around people who could hear that and cultivate those sounds. Who are some of the singers that you admire the most as you've grown up in opera?
Oh, it's very easy. Number one is Tebaldi because of and why? Some people love her, some people feel differently. I adore her. Why? Because of in the pure sound quality, there's so much expressed within the tone itself. And no one else does that. But well, there are other people: Rosa Ponsal, Anita Cerquetti, Leila Genscher, and most recently Aprile Milo, and Andrea Gruber, spectacular dramatic soprano that kind of have this Renata Tebaldian tradition. This is kind of what I strive to preserve with my own love of singing. And I think it's so important because I think a lot of people try to make the same sound, a very manufactured sound, but all the most beautiful voices were with warmth and unique quality that can't be taught. And we have to keep this in mind if we want to keep the popularity of opera alive and well. We can't be copying each other and trying to find only one technique. No, it's a lot more complex than that. We have to find our own way.
Our own voice. Now, you said your ear is your ear and your approach to vocal technique are largely self-taught. How has that informed how you approach characterization and roles and preparation and learning new pieces?
Well, you know what? It gives me a lot of freedom, I have to say now, because I don't put restrictions upon myself. I learned that instantly when I sang Tosca when I was in my early 20s. It was considered a shocking thing to sing Tosca so young, but you know what? I knew it was correct, and my maestro conductor, Maestro La Salva, knew it was correct. There was no problem, and that's very liberating. And once I knew the path I wanted to take, I let my voice decide for itself. And if you follow your feelings and don't be restricted by someone that may not have your best interests in mind, it's much more difficult to fail. You will succeed, I think.
We have our first question from the audience. This is Sam from Houston, Texas, and he asks, "Do you notice does the Italian public or the European public do they respond differently to your sound?"
Well, there is a difference, and in the United States, there's a thought that the voice is never quite ready or dramatic enough for a role. Could be any role. In Europe, it's the opposite. For me, okay, I'm Tosca internationally, but I'm too dramatic for some things in Europe. But then in United States, they want always to have a more refined, pure sound, and I don't know, but it's a very strange distinction. But they prefer more dramatic voice in United States than Europe. I guess that's the simplest way of putting it.
We have a question from Jamie. He says, "Have you performed operas by Donizetti or Bellini? Have those fit into your schedule?"
Yeah, I sang Norma, which was a wonderful experience at Sarasota Opera, which I consider one of the best companies, if not the best, in the United States, the way it's organized. And I sang Lucrezia Borgia. And these were actually two of my favorite experiences, although I would never consider myself a bel canto singer. I would consider myself Verdian. Singing Norma in the sense of the 1950s to the 1970s or 80s with a dramatic voice, with this approach, and singing Norma was really quite rewarding. And I took a similar approach perhaps with Lucrezia Borgia, of which I did a really special production in New York in 2015 with an avant-garde opera company called Loft Opera that really made a very nice mark on the artistic life in New York City at the time. And so I guess I take somewhat of a verismo approach to these roles, but not vocally. In that sense, I try to make them emotionally very verismo and relatable, because these operas can be very dense and unapproachable and boring. And I think we have to really examine the poetry and the intentions, which can be modernized while we respect the music. But I always take them to be, I try to think about them as Verdi roles that are very emotional and very relatable, and try to make them less up in the air.
Wonderful. That's a great answer for these pieces. Have you done that? Have you started looking at the three queen roles in Donizetti? Is that a possibility in the future?
Well, I had thought about it at one point. I don't know if that will ever happen. I would preferably like to sing more Normas with because there was a role of Rosa Ponsal and Cal's of voices that have that are Verdian voices. But the queens, I don't think I'm going to sing. I think I'm going to go more in the Wagnerian direction and continue singing Verdi. I think I have too much that I want to do.
Well, that's a great thing, because it's such an exciting journey. And what I love about music from my perspective is it's a limitless growth potential. You can always learn new avenues as we mature as artists, as we go in different directions. So Wagner, wow, that must be a real challenge from a musical perspective. There's such massive music dramas. What are some of the challenges as you're preparing that, if you're starting that into that repertoire?
Well, that was another thing I just wanted. I had no one to tell me this, but I have the desire to sing Wagner. And so when I went to sing for the Metropolitan National Council Awards, I took a Wagnerian aria every time, and I won 3 times in New York, in the district. So, and then I was told, "Oh, you have the ideal voice for Wagner." So I just I used my instinct to know what was correct for me, and I tried to be very honest with myself. And it's quite similar to the Verdi that I sing. The vocal weight I find very little difference. And Wagner's beautiful because it almost sings itself if you have the right voice for it. It's very rewarding.
If you have the wrong voice for it, it could tear you apart.
Yeah, but
same with Verdi, though, right? Same with Verdi and Puccini.
Yeah, for the right, it's right for you. If someone wants to know, was my voice right for this, for that, for Wagner? Well, when your voice opens up and it becomes easy, that's what you have to sing. It's so easy, so much easier than people think it is.
I think a lot of people are led that direction and get second guess themselves as young artists.
Absolutely, but if you want to be like everyone else, just do the same things. There's very little hope. I mean, there's hope, but for the 0.01% it must be down to. If not, you have to. And the most important thing is that I found is you have to give something. When you want to learn to sing or perform, you can't be there because you need attention or because for any other reason other than you want to be generous to the people that you're performing for. And that shows a lot, and with the generosity that you feel of what you can share, the answers will come to you how to do that. It's come instinctively, I think.
Yeah, it's a great point. Is being a good colleague. I tell my students all the time that the most important thing is be a good colleague, be prepared, be ready, and you have a huge responsibility as a performer.
Oh, you do, but you also, some mistakes are certainly inevitable, and it's part of the spectacle of live performance, especially opera. And illness is a big part of life, and being a singer, but that's also part of the beauty of it. But yeah, we have to be as much prepared as we can, and as respectful as respectful as we can be.
I wanted to ask you. You had one of the during the COVID period. I saw you did a live Verdi Requiem in was in Sicily, I believe, in Taormina.
Yeah. And Taormina is a place I sing a lot in the outdoor theaters
Oh,
because they always Aida Tosca, that's just well suited to it. And Verdi Requiem I sing all the time, and I was scheduled to sing it in Taormina, but it was actually canceled due to weather.
oh
So
no!
it was very sad, but it was an honor to at least have that scheduled.
Have there been
So
other live
looking at
performances you've had in the last month or two?
No, my performances I should be having coming up are Don Carlo in Italy, in the north of Italy, in different cities, but those are not going to happen, unfortunately. So I'm really missing Don Carlo right now.
What's the state of the COVID on the opera industry? Is everything closed down throughout the country?
No, everything's it's not fully closed down, but when they open up, they get closed down, unfortunately. So it's hard to know if it's worth the noble attempt. I think we just have to wait, and we have to learn from this experience. We have to really make every performance counts and make it as meaningful as we can, and informed, and as important as we can,
It's
and
it's
use
it's
the
a great point.
technology to assist that.
It's a great point. We're all we all want to be up there. That's not just our vacation. It's actually our passion. We to get
Well,
up there and to make
yeah,
music.
but that's the thing. That to me, yeah, we want to get up there, but that in a way, and it's not selfish, but but we kind of have to save the arts right now so we can get up there in the future for ourselves and for our colleagues and for the future. And that's kind of what's at risk, because I think before COVID, that thing opportunities have gone I've witnessed that opportunities have gone down for many people, and it's not easy for people to have a professional career anymore, and and people are getting taken advantage of, and this and that. But if we want to have a artistic performances on the highest level, we have to take responsibility now, create performance opportunities on a professional level for each other and for others, with the present and the future in mind. And it's really a difficult call, but we love music, right? There's no one better to do it than us ourselves, because we are the ones with the expertise behind it.
That's a good point. And yeah, to make the arts come alive has been a real challenge. Even before COVID, I was producing
Absolutely.
concerts for the last 15 years. I've been making concerts happen, first working for an opera company, then producing my own events, and then doing things like along those lines. And it's been getting gradually harder with less funding for the last 10 years, I'd say, before COVID. Now it's a new game
Absolutely.
entirely, I think. As we come out of this, it's going to be a real soul searching to see how opera emerges. And we have a lot of small companies in the New York tri-state area who are doing innovative approaches with very small orchestras in non-traditional venues. That was really popular in New York, especially. But now
Yeah.
we're seeing filmed versions, and it's going to be interesting to see where the art form goes in the next year or two as we open up again.
Yeah, I loved a lot of the initiatives that have been going on. I participated in some of them myself, and loved opera, which was really spectacular. But that's not even enough in itself. Um, we have New York City Opera has been a place that where singers, but we need a bigger venue as well, with full orchestra besides the Metropolitan Opera, and that's something that's been a big challenge that must be resolved, in my opinion.
It's
I
been a
kind
real
of
challenge for the regional companies. Have a lot of them went out of business. It's been a real challenge for the regional companies, and that's where the singers would get their chance to get on the stage and to do the big roles for the first time. I've given many great singers the first crack at doing big roles who've gone on to big careers,
oh, that's
and it's
wonderful.
so sad to see that those opportunities are less and less.
Yeah, that's wonderful to find a group like you, like yours, and a conductor like you. It's not every day. There's very few. I always think, the modern day equivalent to New York City Opera would be like Sarasota Opera. So
Sure.
a place where you can go as a true professional singer, audition, and have an actual chance to go and sing if you're appropriate, and that's very rare. So we have to, I'm thinking a lot about it myself, but we have to take the responsibility now, because otherwise I really feel like all these fine arts are going to be turning into more of hobbies than a profession, and uh, we're at the edge of a cliff here, so I hope with with technology and the performances that I
Absolutely, is to find the ways technology can help enhance what we're doing. Um, so tell me about what you're learning in terms of computer programming. You told me before the show you're learning 2 languages. And as soon as I talk about technology, we lose our connection. We're going to try to find her again. Um, these are the challenges we find ourselves. It's always a pleasure to talk to wonderful artists. And here's an artist who performs at such a high international level, who at the same time is learning 2 new computer programming languages. Um, I did not know that before the show, and I'm most impressed. And she's about to start her master's degree at the University of Pennsylvania in computer sciences, while she's maintaining her performance career. Very cool. And we're back, and the challenges of the internet are driving us crazy tonight, but so glad that we can have this conversation. And now you said you're learning 2 computer languages. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, that was my adventure. A very rigorous study of computer languages, C and Python, the things that I really want to learn to solve these technological problems for artists. So we can do an opera if we ever wanted to online for the next not for the next pandemic, because we hope there won't be another one in our generation, but if we also want to have that option, it's going to be available. But not only, the other thing I choose to study the computer languages is because I love translating in other languages. The of translation being Christina Nicola, the best, who's, I don't know how many languages she speaks, but probably 35 languages. But it's so important that people understand what's going on in opera or musical theater or anything. And I really dream about a time where we can have live translation methods on the spot, accessible. This is something I would love to be a part of when I'm singing and when I'm not singing. It's just a way to grow the what we're doing and make it more accessible. We don't have to modernize anything, but we're using modern technology to enhance our old-fashioned art and make it relevant for today. This is my idea of, we don't need to do all these crazy modern productions that don't may or may not have impact on the audiences, but we need to modernize in this way.
A new approach, always the case, especially after such a catastrophic societal event like the COVID pandemic.
Absolutely, absolutely. It really highlighted so many things, but I'm positive and I'm hopeful that this is this is the shock that will bring us to the next highest level, and hopefully we can also at the same time think of creative ways of improving funding or finding even new models of producing opera, because as much as I love the Met, as much as I love small opportunities, there must it's this is not complete for us, and we need to solve this as soon as we can.
Very, very important for all of us and for all the industry. The industry's got to grapple with these issues, especially over the year to come as we start to dig out. I mean, I know we're not gonna have the major companies back probably till September at the earliest.
No, absolutely not. And this is the time for innovation, and more than that, it's the time for courage. In this art form, I've seen everyone so eager to please, but this is where you can be unique and be yourself. This is where your modifications and your ideas are going to change the art form itself. We can't be so eager to please to get on stage. No, we have to take matters into our own hands, I think.
Now, how did you choose the University of Pennsylvania? Why was that your choice, living in Bologna?
Oh, well, the University of Pennsylvania is a good school. It's an Ivy League school, and
Excellent
I
school.
saw that they have an amazing program there, and that with the COVID, that it would be possible for me to study wherever I am. And it's hard for me to know if I'll be in Bologna, if I'll be in New York, if I'll get up and end up singing somewhere at the last minute. It's hard to know. But I actually was thinking about this Don Carlo that's been canceled, and I imagine myself studying on a computer when I had nothing else to do, and it really is coming to life. So I don't know, but the choice of the college just also came to me, and I set a goal, and that was a very difficult program to get accepted to. So I learned as much as I can, 8 hours a day, until I was prepared for the program. But the more than that, this I have my goals very clear and defined in my mind, and I have a way that I can help my industry, and I think that's why I was accepted, and why I
Well,
know that my innovations are going to help us. I don't know.
with all your accomplishments in the performing arts, I think that's going to translate amazingly into what you're going to learn there to bring that back to the performing arts. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting, but more than that, I feel like it's a responsibility, and I know I have the ability and the knowledge to do it. It's not easy. I'd like to just kind of relax and sing my operas that I love doing and enjoy culture and travel as I've been doing, but we need something more. We have to be generous in as we perform, and also we have to be like pilgrims for the art form itself too, because there's no other way. Because if not, someone, an administrator, who's in another world, another universe than an artist, doesn't know what we need. So we have to go out and obtain other knowledge beyond our comfort zone and bring that back to our musical artistic knowledge. And I think it's the best way and the only way.
Well, that's a sage and wonderful advice. What advice do you have for young people who are either thinking about entering the musical field or are just starting their artistic journey? What advice do you have for those people?
Oh, I have a lot of advice for them. The first being, understand why you want to be a performer, and what is the special thing inside of you that you're going to give to people, because you can't expect anything back at all, because you may never travel, you may never you may it's you have to you're taking a chance on faith, and the only way to succeed is to have a message inside of yourself, or an emotion inside of yourself that you can give, that will have a positive or changing effect on people or on the art itself. And if you have any other answer to that question, I think it's going to be really difficult. And when you have the right intentions, you are able to find the path that will take you to success. Because at least at purchase, the first thing they said is, remember, more than 99% of you won't be able to be professional singers. Okay, so so all the methods that they, not them but specifically, but all the methods that people use, it's only going to get a handful of people to the top. So yeah, everyone is going to Yap Tracker, they're looking at the opportunities there. Everyone sees the same thing, everyone's doing the same competitions, everyone's going to the same voice teachers. Yeah, follow the pack like cattle, you're going to get nowhere. Okay, so you have to seek out people that have the knowledge that you're looking for, especially now. All the top artists that we all admire, they're highly accessible. I can't speak for everyone, but I could speak for many, many people that would be more than willing to give advice or give virtual lessons online. There's if you have the if you know what you want to learn and you know what you want to express, and this is not easy for a young person to know, this also kind of develops as you develop as a as a person. But you need to have be fearless and 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 have the instinct to try a new goal. And so if you're someone that needs everything, you want to follow a rule book, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't sing. If you're afraid to get criticized, it would be very hard. So it takes a you have to have something, you have to have the instinct to be generous, you have to have something to give, and you have to be courageous and fearless, I guess. And then train your ear, because you, even if you have a great teacher, in the end you have to teach yourself. So that was the best lesson I learned in New York City, because at the Met, when it was open, they had often many artists come and give speeches and talks about the opera that they were doing and about their career, kind of like what we're doing now. And I remember that about three people asked these famous singers that were presenting the opera, what should we do? How do I find a voice teacher? And then they said, you have to teach yourself. They said the same thing. And I never forget that day, because it did change my perspective. And I realized, I can't wait. Although I was lucky enough to win the Metropolitan Opera District, and I participated in Operalia, but that, even having done that, that's not going to be the thing that propels you. It's your inner energy and your courage that propels you.
Those competitions are wonderful for launching the way into starting, but then it's your energy that's going to carry it to that next level, that career level.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying obviously it does, but that's even more rare. So you have to you have to have a message, I think. And I always like you. We were, before we started recording, you were telling me that you are interviewing also, popular musicians and rock musicians, but even they, like, think about the successful ones. I think about always Michael Jackson, because I was a child. That's the first memory that I have of music. But I watched an interview about him, and they said, well, what was so great about Michael Jackson? And they said, well, when he performed, before he even started singing music, the molecules in the room changed. That means he had something important, some energy, some message that he had to communicate to stadiums of people. So, okay, not everyone needs to have that effect, but you have to have a spark inside of you that has a value to other people, and you have to be honest with yourself to know if you have that or not, or if you're able to transmit that with your technique as a singer or instrumentalist or whatever, conductor.
You have to move the hearts of the audience. I mean, if I don't, I always think when I conduct, if people aren't moved by my conducting, I haven't done my job. There's something wrong. I give everything, and I've always been taught to give. I put everything out there, and like it or hate it, but that's how I feel. And
you're very generous up there. I know that from working with you directly. Absolutely.
Well, we're gonna have to work together again on some really exciting repertoire.
We shall start looking into early Verdi when you have.
I love early Verdi. I've conducted, I've done a couple in concert, but I've never done, there's a lot I haven't done, but I just think the early Verdi is so challenging and beautiful and exciting and visceral when it's done correctly.
Oh, yes, but it's hard to do.
It's hard to do. Well, you need voices.
There's a lot of voices that can do it. I'm telling you, I heard them myself.
There's been an interest in the early Verdi, more and more interest in those pieces, at least before the COVID era.
Yeah. That's getting back to what we said. I had always a love for early Verdi. So when I sent my recording in for Operalia, I sent in I Due Foscari. I must have been the only person that sent that in ever. But I kind of you follow what you love, and number one, you can't be afraid to be different than other people and think what they're going to think about it, because that's what's going to get you ahead in the end, I think.
People want to see someone with a voice, someone with a unique perspective. That's what it's all about.
Yes, absolutely.
Not a cookie cutter approach to articulation or cookie cutter pro forma, like what your teacher told you to do when you get on the stage. That's one of the things when I read your reviews and I've watched your YouTube clips. You really have a sense of drama. You really feel you have a dramatic sense that's just very natural.
Yeah, it's strange. I'm very shy, and even when we're speaking now, and I don't do many live interviews. I like to write much more as with a journalistic idea in mind. But yeah, I have that. I have kind of it's something tragic, or I don't know, something that I have a story to tell, which I've always related well to Lucrezia Borgia and Tosca. And you have to let the channel be open when you sing these roles, but you have to share, you have to share, you have to share. You don't, the thing I always bothers me is you see the truth of the person when they go to take their bows, if they want to absorb energy or if they're still being generous, and you can learn a lot. And even if you
I think we might have lost her again. We're gonna.
say,
There we go.
oh,
We're back. About the last
hello.
couple seconds of what you said, we lost.
Ah, do you see me?
I see. Oh yeah, we're back.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, you have to, kind of leave. You can't be very selfish at all. You have to be generous, like I've always been saying, and even if you risk something when you're on the stage. I remember when I loved referring to Lucrezia Borgia at Loft Opera, but I almost broke my ankle about 5 times slipping on beer in 6-inch high heels. I used more chest voice than I think ever has been used in Donizetti until, although they probably used it when Donizetti saw the productions in his time. But you can't take risks for the sake of taking risks, but you have to give artistic ideas and interpret valid new interpretations. And it's just always thinking and using the intellect as much as instinct, and try to incorporate that in an instinctive way in the moment on stage.
What is something that you've learned as you've been in career that you wish you could have told your younger self?
And when I was young, until I was about 23, I was always a good student, very American. I thought if I follow my teacher, if I follow my teacher exactly the way they explained it to me, I'm going to reach my goals. And I'm going to do everything in a conscientious and an intellectual way. And then I'm going to this is a very American, it's a very nice way of thinking. But something I had a really famous soprano who was my teacher who sings Verismo opera, and then I heard something strange that she didn't like me, and I remember thinking, well, I'm just a kid coming to voice lessons, paying you. So what do you mean you don't like me? So I changed kind of my thinking, and I thought that people are always with who they seem to be, and we're responsible for ourselves and what happens to us. And then I thought, to be safe artistically, it doesn't return anything to you or to your audience. And so I wish I could have learned that earlier and take more risks earlier, and try to even go to Europe earlier, and never be. I wasn't afraid, luckily, but I but I
What
had
was your
but I
first
but I had
European? What was your first European debut?
Verdi Requiem and then Don Carlo.
Right to the big ones.
So
Right
what?
to the big.
Excuse me?
Right to the big repertoire.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. When I was young, I was instructed to sing, very light repertoire, but that actually gave me problems with the vocal technique. So it was really a blessing to have a few words from Renato Scotto and work with Vincent La Selva. And and you can't expect to find a mentor either. I think a lot of people think if once they find the right teacher, the right maestro, they're going to have the guidance that they need. But you can't rely on any of those things. And if you are self-sufficient, the mentors will come to you, and the people, you know. And so I always think the thing I'm very grateful for is meeting Vincent LaSala and Victor De Renzi. These are the two Italian Americans that conducted all of Verdi. And that's, I've always thought that that's one of my purposes, is to be an ambassador for Italian culture and Verdi. So these people were brought to me because I was fearless and I tried to follow my instinct and what I'm meant to do. So I can't think of another way that would have happened. You know?
You were in the right place at the right time, and you were ready to take that guidance.
Yeah, yeah, but it sounds silly to say in retrospect, but at the time, when you're living it as a young person, these things aren't so obvious. you've performed so many concerts and operas, and me too at this stage, and it's easy to look back and correct ourselves, but it's not easy in the moment to
They always say
breathe.
hindsight is 2020, right? Hindsight's always 2020.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just think for anyone trying to do something that only 1% is going to succeed, if you're looking, it always makes me laugh when people are going on Yak Tracker. I mean, yeah, it's so nice. Yak Tracker, if someone doesn't know, it's just a site where people go to look for opportunities, but you're just making it more difficult for yourself. Because even if you're the best, they're just that whoever is judging you might even they might just pass you by or throw your information away because they received so many inquiries that they can't give everyone a generous ear and a generous thought.
Between between conducting engagements, excuse me. There we go. Between conducting engagements, years ago, I would conduct with a couple of the companies in New York City, and one of them was Amore Opera. And we did a production, they quadruple cast the production. We heard maybe hundreds of singers for roles. It was just amazing how many good young singers there were, and there were a lot of them, and it was just wild, the numbers game to me.
I know there's so much talent, and it's only growing. It's only growing, I think. I've given auditions myself actually in the past year, and there's some truly exceptional voices. What can I say? The only thing I noticed is sometimes they all do similar things with the vocal technique that I don't know where it comes from because I'm kind of a renegade in my vocal technique. But everyone can have a tendency to sound similar and take similar actions on stage. There's a lot of things that are overly taught, and I think as much as I love education, I love higher education very much, and I'm excited about studying. But I think for the arts, there's also a danger in it everything to be over compartmentalized. So when you have all this talent, it comes down to again of what we're speaking about. It comes down to innovation and creativity and generosity, because how do we decide between all these wonderful singers? How do we make that decision? I don't know. We have to have more opportunity.
Yeah,
no
the opportunities have suffered quite a bit in the last 10 years, and I think it's going to be even more challenging when we start up again. But we're given hope when artists like yourself who are meeting those challenges head on, and I look forward to making those come alive with you and down the road.
Yeah. Yes. So, the last thing I think I'd like to tell you is that I think even myself, when I started singing, when I started performing, that we're all in love with the idea of like the Metropolitan Opera. I use that as an example because I'm a New Yorker. In Once Upon a Time, you know what I mean? And that Once Upon a Time existed for a very short time, and we all hope to be part of this world that existed for one moment in time, well, in the past. So now we have a new world that we have to redefine for ourselves, and we have to create space for ourselves, and more than that, for others. So when someone's deciding if they want to sing, they have to decide if they want to be part of this world, which I don't know if it exists, that's in development as we speak,
Constantly evolving, right?
Yeah. It's not, we think about Pavarotti in 1994 or Renee Fleming even in 2007, but today it's so different, and it will never be that easy again, so unless something's got to change.
We have to take the advantages of our time and find out how to make ourselves relevant in this time. That's the challenge we have to all face.
It's a challenge, and we can learn, from. That's why I think it's nice that you're interviewing a lot of people from different perspectives and different types of music and different genres, because we can the concepts carry over.
They certainly do, and pop music has been at the forefront of getting audience and building. Not and I mean I've focused on artists I really love and respect, and I'm always amazed by the innovation of creative people like yourself.
Like you. And I love that you're always active and you're always generous and kind, and you're smiling and you're presenting. This is your 70th episode, and that it's wonderful to get all these perspectives out. I'm sure mine is very different than
Very
the other
different, which
singers,
is
but
so exciting.
everything is valid, and we have to listen to everyone now. And I just hope that we arrive after the pandemic with a lot of opportunities somehow.
How can people find out more about your work, Joanna?
Well, you could, I have a website, joannaparisi.com, and you can hear my videos. There's a lot of articles about me. Just search me, find me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm there.
Well, I'm sure some people reach out to you because you have such an interesting career path and personal story, and your years on the stage. We wish you nothing but complete success when this opens up, and especially with your new area of study while you're here. And I look forward to being in touch as well.
Thank you, Maestro. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real honor and pleasure to speak with you again after singing such a wonderful concert. Bittersweet memories.
And thank you for joining us. It's almost it's 1 in the morning in Italy. So thank you for joining us late night.
We'll see you on stage. We'll see you on the East Coast soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Ciao. Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Music Matters 2020. If you like what you heard, please hit that subscribe button and like our videos on social media and share. And thank you. And remember, keep music alive. Good night.